What's up, everyone? Welcome to the FAA podcast, a late night show here on Monday, heading into April tomorrow, and my last day as a two-armed man for a few months.
Good luck with that.
Surgery tomorrow, so it's gonna be cool. Yeah, so news weekend. Just really talking UFL week one and got the Dolphins Colts mock draft as well at the end to wrap it all up. On to UFL week two this week. But the first game of the 2025 season, Battlehawks over the Roughnecks 31-6. And yeah, it started out with a bang, kind of, for the UFL this season. It was not very interesting games on Friday and Saturday. Both of the games were blowouts, big time blowouts. And then on Sunday we got a little bit more competitive. Still decent margins on the on those games, which we'll talk about. But yeah, this one here, Battlehawks leaving no doubt that they do not need AJ McCarron. Manny Wilkins, although I will say it wasn't all Manny. Like, he didn't have to do a ton. Only threw for 189 yards, but was accurate 77.3% there. But what I saw in this game was leadership. Leadership from Manny Wilkins, something that he learned from the multiple places he's been throughout his career, including a guy that a lot of people are talking about going to Pittsburgh this year, Aaron Rodgers. Manny Wilkins spending a year or two in Green Bay, whatever it was, and learning from A-Rod there. But anyways, yeah, Battlehawks 31-6, crushing the Roughnecks. Manny Wilkins, I mentioned 77.3%, 189, 8 carries, 43 yards, 2 touchdowns. And that was the thing. That was the thing in this game, was the running attack for St. Louis, just ripping long gains off on the Roughnecks defense. And they ran to the tune of, I believe it was 200, or actually, yeah, 280 yards, something like that. Let me see exactly here. Yeah, they ran for 273 yards, 6.7 per clip. They ran it 41 times in this game. So instead of what we saw the last couple of seasons with St. Louis, with AJ McCarron at the helm, they were throwing it all around with the litany of wide receivers that they have. Akeem Butler only got targeted one time in this game. A big 6'5" wide receiver there that had a great year last year, and I believe won Offensive Player of the Year, if I remember. I can't remember exactly, but had a great year last year. One target for him. Ja'Cour Pearson was the leading receiver in this game. Caught all 6 of his targets, 83 yards there. So he was involved, but not much for the rest of the guys there. Houston-wise, they played 2 quarterbacks, which was the game plan. Anthony Brown got the start, former Oregon quarterback, 45.5% there, just 21 yards, threw 2 picks early, had a 20-yard carry as well. Nolan Henderson came in, played last year pretty well with Houston, but not very good in this one. 38.9%, 68 yards, a touchdown, 4 carries, 54 yards there. But yeah, I think it's going to be Nolan Henderson going forward. I mean, this was always the case of why I had Houston as the bottom of the USFL conference. I just didn't trust the quarterback. Anthony Brown had never been a starter in professional football until now. He'd been a backup with Baltimore for a couple of years, and had been in the spring football scene, but really didn't see a lot of work. And yeah, I mean, they went against a veteran defense in the Battlehawks with a lot of great players returning on that team. And they shut him down for sure. And he looked like a guy that had not started a professional football game before. Mentioned the running game for St. Louis. Jarvie and Howard just ripped a big long gain, and it was funny because he set the UFL record for longest run at 70, whatever it was, 74. And then it was funny because then the next day there, Kalen Balazs broke it. So it was kind of funny that Howard had like, I don't know, less than 24 hours of a UFL record there. But excellent game. The only guy to go over 100 rushing or receiving yards in week one. So excellent game. I did not see that coming. Jacob Sailors had a great game. The guy that led the UFL in rushing last year still produced quite a bit. 20 total touches, over 130, 140 total scrimmage yards there. I mentioned Ja'Cour Pearson lead the game in receiving. Houston couldn't run the ball. Nolan Henderson was their leading rusher at quarterback, 54 yards. Kirk Merritt, their leading non-quarterback rusher, just 16 yards on 8 carries, 2 yards per carry there. Justin Hall catching 5 of his 10 targets, 40 yards and a touchdown for Houston. And defensively, I got to go with St. Louis linebacker Pita Tamapenu, the former XFL Defensive Player of the Year with the Vegas Vipers. I talked about him in our UFL preview. He's a monster. Had a little bit of a down year last year, I thought, but resurfacing with a bang in week one to the tune of 3 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackle swaths, 2 QB hits. Just dominant up front for the Battlehawks. St. Louis covered easily, -6, under 38.5, which I had. On Saturday, we had the Renegades rolling the Brahmas. And hey, man, this is my pick for the XFL Conference champion. So looking good after one game. St. Louis, on the other hand, did not. And again, this was the question mark. I know I talk way too much about quarterbacks, but it's a quarterback game. And if you don't have a good one, a guy that can, at the very worst, manage the game for you and not turn the ball over, which Kellen Mond didn't. But when you don't have that kind of guy like Arlington does in Luis Perez, it's very difficult to win football games. So, yeah, I did not believe in Kellen Mond, and I'm sure you didn't either, Jimmy, from what you saw with his time in Minnesota. But yeah, it did not turn out like one.
Yeah, this was a certified Kellen Mond moment. Like Mike Zimmer said, I've seen him. He's not good. And yeah, Brahmas are finding out.
Yeah, and it kind of sucks because Wade Phillips, the most of the rest of the roster is constructed pretty solid, especially on defense. But Arlington, it's Bob Stoops, it's this offense, and Luis Perez, to be honest, might be the best quarterback in the league for sure. He probably has the most experience of any quarterback in the league from his multiple league stops. He's been in a bunch of different leagues in his career, kind of like how Josh Johnson is. But yeah, Luis Perez was lights out, 80%, 164 a pick, 2 carries, 18 yards, 3 2-point conversions. Arlington was the best at the point after conversions, and I think specifically the 2-pointers last year, and they continued to be on fire this year as well. They got 3 out of 4, I believe, 2-point conversions in this game, if I am correct. Yeah, they didn't get their first one. Or actually, no, that's St. Louis. They got their first. I think they scored on all 3 of their first 3. And then They did not get a 2-point conversion at the end there. Yeah, so still though, 3 of 4 on 2-point conversions is excellent conversion rate to start the season off there. Kellen Mond, we talked about a 54.8%, 159, 3 carries, 19 yards. Again, the one positive you can bring away from this game for San Antonio is no turnovers for Kellen Mond. So it's something to build on, even though you only scored 9 points. Kalen Ballage, it was a revenge game for Kalen Ballage. He was with San Antonio last year, signed with Arlington this year, and ran wild. I misspoke. I said Jarvian Howard was the only 100-yard runner or receiver, but Kalen Ballage, I forgot because of his UFL record now. Jarvian Howard got broken the next day. 77-yard run in this one for Kalen Ballage. It was a touchdown, and UFL record there, 9 for 110, a touchdown, 1 9-yard reception as well. San Antonio, pretty decent average there for Jashawn Corbin, their leading rusher there, 36 yards on 6 carries, 2-yard catch as well. Yeah, John Lovett scoring a touchdown. How about Davion Smith? The former Michigan running back, 3 carries, 3 touchdowns on 3 yards. And I posted about I quote tweeted this tweet about Davion Smith, and I was like, dude, this is like the biggest Trent Richardson Birmingham Iron AAF vibes, because that's exactly what Trent Richardson did when he played for the Birmingham Iron. And the Birmingham Stallions fan page liked it and retweeted it. It was fun. But yeah, I mean, if that's all he's gonna do, that's all he's gonna do. I mean, it works. He's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, back in the league, and he's kind of made for that goal line work. So makes sense. Jacob Harris led the game in receiving for San Antonio, caught 4 of his 6 targets, 63 yards there. And defensively, I am going to go with Arlington at corner Jaden Price. 4 tackles, all of them solos, 2 passes defense, and a forced fumble. Arlington +1 wins outright over 39. Almost under. It's so close. Couple over there. Michigan Panthers starting off Sunday with a win, 26-12 over the Showboats. Bryce Perkins, it was a 2-quarterback system on each side in this game. Bryce Perkins got the start for Michigan. He was lights out, 84.2%, 163, touchdown, 6 carries for 14 yards, a rushing touchdown. That was just ridiculous. He got stripped and recovered his own fumble and ran it in for a touchdown. It was ridiculous. He also converted a 1-point run as well on a run. Denny Etling played sparingly for Michigan as well, 66.7%, 30 yards, 2 carries, 15 yards there. Troy Williams getting the start for Memphis. I was surprised at that. I thought E.J. Perry would get the start, but Troy Williams, the backup last year and played for Memphis a little bit as well. He was really good efficient-wise, 72.7%. Just 104 yards, though, did throw an interception. That was an issue for both quarterbacks. E.J. Perry, no revenge game for him like Kalen Ballage. With Arlington, he was the starter for Michigan last year, and they did not re-sign him, signed with Memphis instead. 58.8% for Perry, 93 yards, touchdown, and a pick. Deneric Prince led the game in rushing for Memphis, 10 carries, 38 yards, 2 catches, 27 yards. Neither team could really run the ball there. Nate McCurry, the leading rusher for Michigan, just 34 yards on 14 carries there. Jonathan Adams, he is your UFL leading receiver after 1 week. Caught 6 of his 7 targets for 93 yards and a touchdown. Also a touchdown by wide receiver Samson Nakua for Michigan. And, of course, had to complete the Nakua set in this game. Safety Kai Nakua Sampson's brother, and Puka Nakua's brother, the Rams wide receiver. Kai, though, excellent game. 6 tackles, 2 solos, pass defense, and an 80-yard pick six to seal the game. I hate you, though, Kai, because why couldn't you just go down? We had the under in hand, Jimmy. We had the under. I know it ended up hitting, but there were some people out there that did not get the extra half point, okay? And we had to settle. We had to settle for a push and getting our money back instead of winning money. I know. Beggars can't be choosers. You know. It could have lost. We could have lost. But we didn't. I guess sometimes ties are okay. Anyways. Panthers -7 covered under 38.5 by the hook, like I said. And what a race it has started to become in the XFL conference after 1 week. Got 3 teams at 1-0, and I think this was the biggest upset, hands down. Technically, Arlington was an upset. St. Louis and Michigan were both big favorites. But how about the DC Defenders, baby, defending the DMV 18-11 over the Birmingham Stallions, the 3-time defending champion, 2 USFL titles, 1 UFL title, and DC winning with a interim head coach and Shannon Harris in his first game there. Just a masterful performance from Coach Harris. And I mentioned this guy as well during the UFL preview and why I thought DC would be the number 2 team in the XFL conference under Arlington there, or maybe I had him third under St. Louis. I can't remember. But regardless, Greg Williams, just ridiculous game plan, shutting down Alex Magoo and the Skip Holtz-led Birmingham offense there. The DC offense wasn't the greatest. Jordan Ta'amu, 45.9%, 211, touchdown and a pick. But again, like I said, Alex Magoo, there was just nothing in the second half. 43.5%, 89 yards, touchdown, a pick, 8 carries, 84 yards, and a 2-point conversion. DC ran the ball pretty well. Deion Jackson, 10 carries for 42 yards there. Abram Smith, not the greatest return after a year-long absence with the ACL injury there. What was interesting is outside of Alex Magoo, Birmingham couldn't run the ball at all. Ricky Person, the leading non-quarterback for the Stallions, just 29 yards on 6 carries there. Pretty solid average, but not a lot of yards there. Did fumble as well for Person, the only lost fumble in the UFL this weekend. CJ Marable, not a good rushing day, but caught a 12-yard touchdown from Magoo. Ty Scott leading the game in receiving, caught 5 of his 10 targets, 61 yards, touchdown from his teammate, wide receiver Chris Rowland. And defensively, the defenders balled out. 8 sacks on Alex Magoo in this game. And to be honest, I didn't watch this whole game, but a lot of the sacks from the clips that and the little bit of game I did watch, a lot of the sacks were on Alex Magoo. I mean, he's holding the ball. He's holding the ball, running around, trying to play hero ball, making something happen when there's nothing there and not throwing the ball away. Something that is weird to see from a guy that won USFL MVP in 2023. So, great day for the DC defense, though. I'm going to go with Anthony Hines, linebacker for DC, as my defensive player of the game. 6 tackles, all of them solos, 2 sacks, 2 tackles lost, and a fumble recovery as well. How about Matt McCrane winning this game for DC also? Could not have done it without him. Hit all 4 of his field goals, including 2 50-plus yarders. I think it might have been 3, actually. I know he hit a 50 and a 56. I think he hit a 53 though too, and a 45. I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, excellent game for Matt McCrane. Start the year for DC. DC plus 7.5 wins outright. Under 41.5 easily, just 29 in that game. The lowest scoring game of the weekend. And you know what? We do have breaking news. We do. It's not that breaking anymore because it's been a little bit, but it did happen today, and it pertains to the Memphis Showboats. The Showboats are getting their coach back. Head coach Ken Wisenhunt announcing he is returning to the head coaching duties and slash offensive coordinator for the Memphis Showboats after taking a leave of absence just last week. So interim head coach Jim Turner taking the L, unfortunately, on his record. But he will return to his offensive line duties, and Ken Wisenhunt back at the helm for the Memphis Showboats. So bodes very well for Memphis. They got a lot to work on, but I think they definitely need Coach Wisenhunt in house there to get that offense running, regardless of who's going to play quarterback. All right, let's go to college football news. How about Stanford? Andrew Luck, the GM there, and they have an interim head coach for 2025. They hired former Colts and Panthers head coach Frank Reich as the interim head coach of the Stanford Cardinal. Both sides agree it's a one-year commitment. He will not be the head coach for the foreseeable future or the long term. It is just for 2025. And then next off season, they're going to do a nationwide search, which makes sense. I mean, to fire Troy Taylor as late as they did in March, when you have your spring game, coming up in like 2 or 3 weeks, probably, it's not going to work, right? So, get a guy that has experience, a lot of experience, and just see what you can do. I mean, I don't know. I might be just hammering every dollar that I have on Stanford under wins this year because it's just. I mean, I didn't look at the roster yet. Not even close to getting to look at college football rosters yet. But because we saw the spring transfer portal coming up in a week or so. But yeah, I mean, I just don't see this Stanford team being able to put up a good amount of wins, let alone get to a bowl. Couple transfer portal, and one of them is Stanford. And talked about Stanford edge rusher David Bailey. He's going to be a hot name in the transfer portal. Just entered last week. First visit with Texas Tech, so Red Raiders potentially getting a big boost to their defense there. Georgia State running back Freddie Brock. I mentioned a couple visits for him on Friday. He added another one, Oklahoma State there. So potential Ollie Gordon replacement for the Pokes there. NFL news, the tush push ban apparently has some support within the competition committee now. So that was a big thing on Twitter today. I commented on that, on Brian Gutekunst's comments about how he didn't have a big hand in their proposal, and it's good for the league. There's injury concerns, and I said what I've been saying all along is the Packers are just butthurt, man. Like, sorry, you lost to the Eagles your first game of the season, and you lost to Eagles last game of the season, and you couldn't stop the brotherly shove either time. Wah wah. But the thing is the NFL has come out and literally said that there has been no injuries recorded on the tush push play throughout the league. So I still am of the position that it makes no sense. People can call me biased because I'm an Eagles fan. I don't care. But it doesn't make sense when there is not just one team that is doing it, or it makes sense. There's only a couple teams that are very successful at doing it. It's not an entire league thing. We've seen teams try to do it and they suck at it. It's only the Bills and it's only the Eagles, realistically, that are successful at this play. So it's stupid in my book.
I mean, how many times do we have to say the same thing? I mean, as a Viking fan, I've seen the Vikings try it. They never figure it out. It only works if you have a beefy interior offensive line and a big, strong quarterback. And Eagles have that, and the Bills have that. It's just you can't outlaw a play that only works for like two teams.
Mm-hmm.
It makes no sense. It's legal in every aspect. It doesn't involve any holding. I saw your tweet earlier today. You had mentioned that there's no significant rise or any like noticeable injuries because of this kind of play. I know people are going to talk about Chris Jones tweaking his neck in the Super Bowl, but Chris Jones has always had shoulder injuries. Like he always had shoulder and neck injuries, even going into the Super Bowl. So it's not overly surprising that he was still banged up. And yeah, again, it's just you're grasping at straws, Green Bay. I'm sorry, you just are.
Yeah, and to be honest, I'm surprised Colts don't do it more. With Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor in the backfield, I think the Colts should be able to freaking. Well, now that they lost their center and guard, I don't know if they'll be able to now. But the Vikings can. No, JJ McCarthy is not that guy to do that. Anyways, yeah, it's dumb. All right, extensions. Buffalo. Speaking of Buffalo, they continued their extension off season. Signed corner Christian Benford to a 4-year, $76 million extension. There, I didn't get the guaranteed money anywhere, but another massive extension for a homegrown player there, Christian Benford. I believe a 7th-round selection a couple years ago out of Arizona State, and just a massive hit for the Bills.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 6th round, out of Villanova. Okay, I was very wrong. I think they drafted someone out of Arizona State in the 7th round. I thought, or maybe that was someone else. I don't know. But the Bills also doing some other work. They released Sam Martin, their punter, earlier in the offseason for cap reasons, and they got a punter now. They signed former 6th-round pick, the Bengals punter Brad Robbins. So he will be the new punter there for Buffalo this season, more than likely. Anyways, I should say. I swear. Okay. Buffalo did not apparently draft anyone in from an Arizona school in the last 10 years. I thought for sure there was someone that got drafted from Arizona State in the 7th round. That was a corner. And the Texans keeping a guy in the AFC South. They signed Colts linebacker EJ Speed to a 1-year, $3.25 million deal, $5 million max value on that one. Solid low cost signing for Buffalo on a guy that had been a really solid player for Indianapolis just a couple years ago. So,
Mm-hmm.
all right, that is it for the news. Not seeing anything else. Yeah, I keep getting bombarded with freaking 24/7 sports. Basketball transfer portal crap. I don't care about, but unfortunately, can't filter that out.
Yeah.
You follow them, You got to deal with college football and college basketball. Anyways, Dolphins Colts here. Miami 13-48 and a compensatory 98. They traded their third round pick this year to move up in the fourth round last year with the Eagles. And the Colts have all three of their own 14, 45, and 80. Yeah, Indianapolis does not trade very often.
No, they don't.
Alrighty. So let's roll here. Titans going Cam Ward. Browns, what do we got here? Abdul Carter. Giants, Will Campbell. Armand Membu for the Patriots. It's an interesting one. Travis Hunter, the Jags. I saw that in a mock today, or team fit. Ashton Genty to the Raiders. Shador Sanders with Jets. Will Johnson for the Panthers. Mason Graham to the Saints. Tyler Warren to the Bears. Dang it, man. Shamar Stewart for the 49ers. Tetsuo McMillan for the Cowboys. So we're on with the Dolphins here. And give me a sec to pull up Miami's roster, and you can comment on the Bucks trade there a while, Jimmy, if you want.
Yeah, as representing the Miami Dolphins, I don't like this trade, obviously. I think there's guys in this area that I think they would go for. There's one guy in particular that I think makes a lot of sense for them. Maybe it's a reach, but I like him. So I don't like this trade as much, just getting a second back, pretty late second. It doesn't move me. What's the other trade offer?
Yeah,
No.
Chicago. Yeah. So what was that? What was that one here? Okay, 6 spots for a second. Yeah, it's not enough in the first round of the draft. But anyways, what I got: safety. Again, these are not updated. But safety here for the Dolphins. Still could be a play. I'm not sold on the Ifeatu Melifonwu and Ashton Davis combination there. I do like Patrick McMorris, who they drafted in the 6th round last year out of San Diego State. Or Cal, actually, technically. Went to San Diego State before that. But I don't think it's as big of a need anymore with the guys that they have now. Corner, though. Corner is a massive need, I think. Jalen Ramsey obviously is a baller. Kader Kohu, one of the best nickels in the league. They did sign Artie Burns, who I think played well in Seattle. But our lads has Storm Duck as the opposite outside corner from Jalen Ramsey. So I think you need to upgrade that for sure. They did draft Cam Smith out of South Carolina in the 2nd round 2 years ago. Not sure where he's at in his development. Obviously, our lads doesn't think he's developed enough to be a starter on the other side. But yeah, so I think corner's a big need. Guard. What did we do at guard here? So it's okay. They signed James Daniels. Yeah. They got Jackson Carman inside and Chasen Hines as the backups there. So I kind of like those guys, especially Carman. Interior D line, I think, is still a big issue. They still have never replaced Christian Wilkins. They have Matt Dickerson and Benito Jones as the guys going with Zach Sealer. So I think interior D line's a massive need. Linebacker is not an issue anymore. They re-signed Jordan Brooks. They brought in Willie Gay and KJ Britt. So they have actually 5 very solid linebackers: Jordan Brooks, Tyrell Dodson, Willie Gay, KJ Britt, and Channing Tindall, who they drafted in the 3rd round in 2022. So linebacker, I think, is off the board here for them. Wide receiver, I think, is a need. Potentially. It's a day 2, day 3 kinda thing. Just because the age of Tyreek Hill, he's getting up there, right? And has had injuries the last 2 years. So, I think with that being said, I think wide receiver day 2 could be a option for Miami. They did sign Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, who had a great couple years in Tennessee with subpar quarterback play, so I'm very intrigued to see what he can do with a real quarterback in Tua Tagovailoa. Um, and they did draft Eric Ezukanma in the 4th round in 22, Malik Washington in the 6th round last year, Taj Washington in the 7th round last year. Um, Malik Washington, though, I really think is an interesting one for sure. If he can get some more snaps this year after not really playing. Neither guy played a lot, the Washingtons that they drafted. Um, and then QB2, which they addressed. They got Zach Wilson from the Broncos, so I don't think that is a big need. What I will say though is tight end. I would add tight end to my list because they did not do anything. They brought in Pharaoh Brown from the Seahawks, but the thing is Jonnu Smith's getting up there in age, and they really do not have a tight end of the future on the roster. So I think tight end could be one to look at. And what everyone is saying with Miami is tackle. I don't think it's a need. You drafted Patrick Paul in the 2nd round last year for a reason. Tron Armstead more than likely is not going to be around. More than likely is going to retire. And they brought in Larry Borum as well from the Bears to be a swing guy. So I am on the minority view. I feel like of the Dolphins with the tackle situation. Obviously, you have to protect Tua Tagovailoa with his injury history, but my top needs, as I kind of recap this, what I said, corner and interior D line are the biggest needs, and then after that, I would look at safety and wide receiver probably.
I have a big need, and I'm kind of surprised they didn't address it last year, and I don't think it's very good on their team now. I really do think interior offensive line is a huge need. I'm not a fan of Eichenberg or James Daniels. I think what they did last year and not addressing that need really bit them in the ass last year. So I put interior offensive line as one of their top needs. I put it right up there with interior D line and corner. I think that it's I again I don't like Eichenberg. I don't like Daniels and the guys like Jackson Carman, Myers, and Jason Hines. It's not great depth. And what we've seen for the past what feels like 3 seasons is that this interior offensive line is not protecting Tua Tagovailoa, your franchise player. I think this is a definite need that they need to address. I think it could be a first round need. I like Tyler Booker a ton at 13. Some people would consider that an overdraft. I genuinely don't. I think Booker at 13 is not a bad pick. In fact, I think it's a great pick. I think Booker makes a ton of sense for what Miami needs. That being said, there are other first round talents. If we're going D line, I think Harmon makes a lot of sense. If you want to go interior D line, and if you want to do safety, I think Malachi Starks makes a ton of sense. In terms of corner, I don't think there's other than Will Johnson. I don't think they would reach for a guy like Barron or Ravel.
Yeah.
I think that's a little bit too much a stretch. But to me, I think I like Booker a ton at 13. I've seen a lot of mock drafts of Tyler Booker at 13, and I agree with it. I'm gonna stake my claim at Booker at 13 for Miami.
Yeah, I agree to an extent. However, I think it's just a glaring need that the D line, the interior D line, the front 3, it's Zach Sealer and a bunch of chumps. Um, he needs help up front. Uh, and I think Derek Harmon should be the pick here because they have no one. They have no starting quality players at the interior D line spots besides Sealer there. And to your point about the interior O line play, at least they have guys that can play in James Daniels and Liam Eichenberg and Aaron Brewer at center. And like I said, I like Jackson Carman as well as a swing interior guy. Chasen Hines is decent as well. But I think Jackson Carman can fill in for either of those guys adequately. And we also have pick 48. So maybe, a guy like Gray Zabel potentially, or Donovan Jackson is there as well. Or a guy that I really like in Jonas Savaiinea, which I don't know why they are so low on him, but I really like Savaiinea. He's ranked 50th for them. Wyatt Millum is there as well. So I think there's guys that we can target for interior line if we're going to go there on the second pick. But I like getting Harmon right now.
I see. So yeah, I think Starks is out of the picture here. I think it's probably between Harmon and Booker. This is a tough thing about D-line. This is such a deep interior D-line draft. It's honestly such a good one. Although, I will say the depth comes from a lot of third-round talent, not a lot of second-round D-line talent. This is tough. I hate passing on Booker. However, I really like Harmon, so I wouldn't cry about it.
I would also, I know I added tight end to the Dolphins list. I would also add edge rush. They got to get at least one more guy with Chubb and Phillips both coming off major injuries. Chop Robinson developed very well last year, but they need a fourth guy in that rotation that they'll have to get eventually on day 2 or 3, or probably day 3. I would assume there. It's a little far back for us. Rams, sorry. Texans, good try. Not doing that interdivisionally for sure. And Vikings 10 spots. It's a little much there, I think. So for Indy, what do we got here? Indy, I have big one. Center, which is not a need actually. I don't know why I put center. Just because Ryan Kelly was a free agent. That's why. But the Colts have actually done a very nice job of draft and replace here with guys from last year's draft class. A guy that I loved. And I don't know why I put center because I love Tanner Bortolini, man. Wisconsin Badger. He was one of my sleepers last year in the draft, and the Colts got him. I was really hoping that the Eagles were going to get him potentially, but yeah, the Colts filled in adequate. I think he's going to be a stud. They also have Danny Pinter, the journeyman that has filled in inside at all 3 spots. And they drafted Mac and Cavez in the 3rd round last year out of Pitt as well to fill in Will Fry's vacated spot at right guard. So I actually think their O-line is pretty solid. The one thing I would say is maybe look at drafting a flyer guy on day 3 at either tackle or interior. Blake Freeland is their swing tackle, a 23 4th rounder. But I think I like what they got at the O-line position, so I'm going to pass on center. Obviously, tight end. Tight end's the big one. Tight end's the thing that everyone says with the Colts right now. And unfortunately, Tyler Warren's gone. He's the real stud at tight end. I know a lot of people like Colston Loveland. I'm not as big of a Colston Loveland guy as a lot of other people are. I think Tyler Warren's the stud of the tight end class. But Loveland's not a bad play at all. Safety. I think safety isn't as big of a need. Potentially, they signed Cam Bynum from your Vikings. So they got him and Nick Cross, Daniel Scott, a 23 5th rounder, Rodney Thomas, a 22 7th. So it's okay. Guard again is not an issue, I don't think. Linebacker. Why did I put linebacker? Because there's no depth. It's okay. Jalen Carlisle's a 5th rounder last year. Going with the tackling machine and Zaire Franklin there. Yeah, I guess so. I like the D tackle depth. The edge rush depth is pretty solid as well. I think the D line's good. Um, the corners are really good, and really, I think this is a decent roster, to be honest. The wide receivers are okay. So really, for me, it's tight end and safety would be my secondary pick probably for the Colts.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate a wide receiver pick. I think their depth is kind of like Green Bay's. It's a lot of solid, good, not great guys. I don't think Matthew Golden would be a horrible pick here. That being said, I like Cam Bynum a lot, and they've given him a ton of money. So I don't know if I'd jump at Starks here. I'm looking at the roster now. It's one of those things. It's like this roster should make the playoffs hypothetically if you had a quarterback. I think they're in a position where if Warren's not available, you take BPA. I think Jalen Walker makes sense. I know it's not a huge need. I think Jalen Walker would come in probably more as a rotational linebacker than the number one starter guy. But that's kind of how I saw Dallas Turner when the Vikings got him. He came in and became rotational, and he had really good flashes, and he should continue to improve next year. I think Jalen Walker could do that with the Colts. And I get Loveland makes sense, but I don't think Loveland's 14th pick material. I think he's, I don't know. I think if you're the Colts, if you were set on taking Loveland, you would probably take a trade back. But I know the Colts don't really do that. So it's tough.
I'm on the Loveland train here. I know I bashed him a little bit, but he's the best bang for their buck in terms of need and value. The only other one I would say is Malachi Starks. To be, they wanted to get value. I mean, Kelvin Banks would be sure. They really don't have a place to put him with Bernard Ryman and Braden Smith. And I think Banks is too big to be a guard. So I would go Loveland if I'm Indy. That's the most glaring hole that they have on their roster.
Yeah.
And there's only 2 first-round tight ends.
Yeah, I guess so. I think this would be a reach. I do think Warren will drop to them. I think if we were to do this like mock again, we would just get him in the next pick. But I think Loveland is a fine pick at 14.
Falcons going James Pierce. Who's going to draft Kelvin Banks? Jalen Walker to the Cardinals? It's interesting. We haven't really had the trade that I was just going to say we haven't really had yet. Kelvin Banks for the Bears, 39, 41, and a 5th next year. Michael Williams, Lions coming up for the pass rusher that they desperately need across from Hutchinson, 28, 60, and 196. Nick Eamon-Worry for the Bucks. Broncos going Matthew Golden. Steelers going Jahdae Barron. That's a home run. Tyler Booker for the Chargers. Oh, Jets coming up for Josh Simmons, 42, 73, and a 2nd next year. Siobhan Revel for the Vikes. Jahad Campbell for the Texans. Nick Scorton for the Rams. Gray Zabel for the Ravens. Seahawks on Malachi Starks. I was going to think about coming up for him with Miami, but that would have been a long way to come. It would have been a home run hit for sure, but we would have had to come from 48, 20 spots.
Yeah.
Donovan Ezeuaku for the Commanders. Bills going Emeka Egbuka. Good Lord. Walter Nolan. Wow, the Cards stealing them from the Eagles. 47, 78, and 115. Tyleik Williams for the Eagles. Okay. Ben Morrison for the Browns. Donovan Jackson for the Giants. Well, all the guards are gone, Jimmy. Almost.
Almost.
Trey Harris for the Titans. Luther Burden to the Jags. Ariante Ursery for the Raiders. We should just go get Kenneth Grant now too, and just solidify the triumvirate from Miami. That'd be lit. Derek Harmon, Kenneth Grant, and Zach Sealer up front.
That'd be insane.
The only issue with that lineup is that none of them is really a nose tackle.
Yeah, that's a
They
big
don't
thing
have
for
a
them.
they don't have a big enough body for nose tackle for any of those guys. O'Marion Hampton for the Patriots. That's interesting. JT Tuimoloau for the Bengals. Mike Green for the Saints. Carson Schweschinger for the Bengals. Azariah Thomas for the Pack. Mason Taylor for the 49ers. Caleb Johnson to the Cowboys. The Colts. Nope. So got Colson Loveland. And hey man, I don't think they would do it because of what they did. But Jackson Dart is on the board here. And a lot of people have him going in the first now.
Yeah. I don't think he's a first round talent, but I think he's a second round talent. I think he makes sense for the Colts in terms of just how little they believe in Anthony Richardson and getting a guy like Dart and basically telling Richardson, all right, this is the year you figure it out, man. Because if not, we got your replacement already. He's sitting right there. As much as
Daniel Jones, Jackson Dart competition camp.
My problem is, I this is silly, but I'm trying to be realistic. I don't think Jim Irsay would allow that to happen. I think Jim Irsay wants to see Anthony Richardson as his guy. Anthony Richardson, it's almost like Dan Snyder with RG3. It's like he wants him to succeed, come hell or high water. So that's me trying to be realistic. I think in real life, well, not just in real life, this was 31 other teams that had a question mark at QB and a first round, well, what is now considered first round talent drops to mid second round. I think the obvious thing would be to take him, but I don't think Irsay would allow it. I think he would probably go defense here. I think Xavier Watts makes sense. I also think Trey Amos out of Ole Miss makes sense. I think they need, maybe a corner and a safety. But I agree. I think Jackson Dart would make sense, but I don't think Jim Irsay would allow it.
It wouldn't be a terrible play to go Kenneth Grant. Based off value, Grover Stewart, DeForest Buckner, getting up there in age a little bit, especially Buckner. But yeah, I think going with Watts is probably the play here. Just for the fact that I think he's a guy that, I think he's a guy that can be a hybrid, sort of like a guy that they just drafted last year that is in the starting lineup right now. Jalen Carlisle was a hybrid safety linebacker. And just to get the measurables on him, he's bigger, a lot bigger, 6'2", 6'3", 227. So Watts under that for sure at 5'11", 204. But he's a guy that is not afraid to hit. And I really think that Watts is a guy that can play safety and linebacker, like I said, in a hybrid role. So I like him. Jalen Noel, you said about wide receiver for Indy. But, yeah, I like Watts too. Falcons going to go Maxwell Hairston. It's a home run. Kenneth Grant. Oh, my gosh. Of course. Michigan. Seattle. Okay. If we're going to do that, we're going to counter. Because, come on, man. A 7th round pick for 2 spots in the second round. That's ridiculous. That's actually not a bad trade. A 6 to a 2 next year for a team that's gonna suck, and you got to move back 19 spots. I don't hate that, to be honest.
Yeah, but there's a guy whose name I'm starting to see down there at the bottom that I don't think would be available at that.
The pundits would say, draft Tua's replacement. He's hurt too much.
No, kind of like with the Colts and Anthony Richardson, this offense and this team is built around Tua being the guy. I mean, their coach was brought in specifically to get the most out of Tua. I think they still believe in him. I mean, kind of with the Colts, I don't think it's the right thing to do, but they still believe in him. And you got to protect him. And we said this last year when I think we both gave the Miami Dolphins our worst grades in terms of drafting because of just what they refused to do, and that was to protect Tua Tagovailoa. And you can't ignore that now. They still believe in Tua. They think he's still their guy. They paid him all that money, and I don't know when his contract, how far into that new contract he is, but you got to protect the golden boy, and it's right there. I think they would do it. I don't think they would go with Dart or Milrow. I think they would protect Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah, we gave them bad draft grades because they drafted an edge rusher in the first round, which we didn't think was a need. Although it worked out because they needed him badly when the injuries happened. They traded up traded a third round pick this year to Philly to go up and get Jalen Wright. Then they drafted 2 wide receivers, and on day 3 as well. And they drafted a second edge rusher, a guy I really like, in Muhammad Kamara. But anyways, yeah. So you're saying Sabainea? I don't hate it at all. I would throw out Connerly, like I said, but I think they did a good job, somewhat getting the Armstead replacement with Patrick Paul waiting in the wings as a second rounder from last year. Really didn't he played a little bit when injuries hit at guard and tackle because he has that versatility. But getting Larry Borum from the Bears, a guy that's played games in this league, I think is a good option for swing tackle / spot starter also. So I don't hate it. Sabaine is a guy that can also play tackle if needed. A little bit shorter arms. That's why he's a guard. But yeah. Who's going to draft Jackson? Trey Engels, the Seahawks. Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Darian Porter for the Broncos. Double it up. Go Jalen Milrow now. Josh Connerly.
You're Sam Darnold a lot of competition.
Braden Swinson to the Bucks. Hey, man, you can't hit if you don't have the darts to throw. Braden Swinson to the Bucks. Isaiah Bond to the Packers. There's a receiver, Green Bay. Landon Jackson for the Chiefs. Denzel Burke for the Bills. Andrew Makuba for the Panthers. Jalen Royals for the Texans. Who's going to draft Jalen Milrow? Princely Iman for the Ravens. Tate Ratledge for the Seahawks. That's a great one. Kevin Winston and the Commanders. Jalen Noel. Saints coming up. 71 and a fourth next year. Travion Henderson to the Chiefs. Wyatt Millum for the Eagles.
Here goes Jalen.
Yeah. Jalen Milrow. Third round of the Giants. Marcus Bowe for the Chiefs. Alec Manor for the Browns. Unfortunately, we do not have teams that need running backs because Quinshon Judkins is dropping. Yeah. Lathan Ransom for the Raiders. Kyle Kennard for the Patriots. Harold Fannin to the Jags. Darius Alexander for the Bills. TJ Sanders for the Jags. 88 and 126 coming up. Packers coming up, or no. Quinshon Judkins goes to the Bears, 88, 126, and 240. Barrett Carter for the 49ers, Shamar Turner for the Cowboys, Torrey Horton for the Patriots, Billy Bowman for the Chiefs, Jared Wilson for the Texans, and we're back on with the Colts. 3 spots, pick up a 5th rounder and a 7th rounder. It goes to the Steelers. I like that one a little bit. Yeah, so we got tight end and we got a safety. Those are really the only 2 ones that I saw. We got a couple wide receivers here. We also have a linebacker. And we have some interior defensive linemen as well, potentially. What do you like?
I like either Chris Paul Jr. or Omar Norman Lott. I think they make sense. I mentioned going for BPA and getting, his name escapes me, the linebacker from Georgia in the first round. We did skip on him.
Jalen Walker.
Yeah, Jalen Walker. That was the guy I was looking for. I think Chris Paul Jr. makes a ton of sense. And with their interior D-line getting a little older, I think Norman Lott makes sense. I lean towards Chris Paul Jr. I think they can get some decent D-line men in the 4th, 5th round. I don't think the linebacker pool in this draft is as deep. And I think Chris Paul is the last day 1 and 2 linebacker in this draft. I would go there. Yeah. I think it dips dramatically after Chris Paul Jr.
I like trading back.
I don't hate it.
Take a 5th round for a 7th next year. 3 spots.
I don't hate it. I just hate the idea of missing out on Chris Paul Jr. and Norman Lott. I think Pittsburgh probably could take one. Bengals are looking to improve their defense. Same with the Seahawks. I don't know if Chris Paul is there.
I like it.
All right. Well, let's hope he's still there. If you want to take it, good luck.
Jaden Higgins to the Steelers. Emory Jones for the Bengals. Jack Best to the Seahawks. I told you, Jimmy.
All right. He's still there. All right. Fine. All right. Take Chris Paul Jr.
Yeah, I like it now. I like Chris Paul. It makes a ton of sense. We just talked about the Texans signing EJ Speed, who the Colts elected not to re-sign because they want Jalen Carlisle to step in and be that other linebacker besides Zaire Franklin. They have some other dudes that have played sparingly, but they need some good depth, as well as obviously insurance policy in case Carlisle doesn't work out as a 24 5th round selection. So Chris Paul Jr. Colts. And now we wait. Dorian Strong for the Bucks. Terrence Ferguson to the Broncos. Gunnar Helm to the Chargers. Run on tight ends here. Ashton Gelati for the Packers. Panthers going Kyle Williams. Anthony Belton for the Texans. Rams going Cameron Williams. Omar Norman Lott, 49ers coming up 100, 160. Elijah Arroyo for the Seahawks. Dylan Fairchild for the Saints. Browns going Jonas Senker. Kobe Bryant for the Chiefs. Olu Oladejo over the Eagles. Eagles hit a home run in this draft, by the way. Jordan Birch for the Vikes. No. Bengals. So, Dolphins here. What we got? We got interior D-line, interior O-line. And now actually, oh my goodness, this is perfect. This is beautiful. This is beautiful, Jimmy. We can go another big boy inside, and it's a guy that has the size to be our nose tackle in Alfred Collins. This is beautiful. Perfect timing.
Yeah, I don't mind double drafting on position when it's not really the same position if you think about it. Nose tackle and D tackle are a little different. I think Alfred Collins can fill that role, and I think you also get super athletic with Harmon. I think it's the best of both worlds for this Dolphins team.
Yeah, for sure. I love it. The other one that I would consider is Tez Johnson here. because of the speed, which he really didn't even time that fast, but compared to what I think he is thought of around the draft world. But yeah, I love Alfred Collins being a big body that can play nose to pair with Harmon and Zach Sealer up front. Jalen Reed for the Giants. Ravens going Logan Brown. Rams getting Cam Scattaboo. And the Lions going Smile Munden. Go Dogs. So here we go. We got the Colts. Colston Loveland filling the biggest need the Colts have on the roster. Xavier Watts in the second round, and we traded back a couple spots to get Chris Paul Jr. in the third. Dolphins. I love this draft for Miami. Build the trenches. Derek Harmon in the first. Jonas Sabainea in the second. Alfred Collins in the third. They get a penetrating 5-tech at defensive end to pair with Zach Sealer. They get a guy that can potentially take one of the spots from Liam Eichenberg or James Daniels in Jonas Sabainea, and Alfred Collins can play the nose in between Harmon and Sealer there. So I like the Dolphins a lot more than I like the Colts, just probably because it fills needs, and I thought they were home run selections at every pick.
Yeah, I got nothing else to add. I think that's a really good draft for both. Although it's kind of a bumming feeling that, at 14, if, Tyler Warren's there, and in most drafts, I think he will be. I'd be shocked if he goes before 14, just based on the teams above the Colts and their needs. Who did end up getting him? Who was it? Was it the 49ers or something? No, it was the Bears. It was the Bears. That's kind of shocking. I don't know. I'm friends with a ton of Bears fans. I think they like Cole Kmet a lot. I know they got rid of their backup tight end, but it's not a need. It's not really a first-round need.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of the Bears, that's who we're going to be at next Monday night. Saints-Bears mock draft. We'll be into the top 10 there. So only a couple. I mean, we got a couple more shows, and then we'll be doing our one and only complete first round mock draft. And by the time you know it, it'll be late April, and we'll be doing the NFL draft live coverage. But yeah, next week, UFL week 3. We'll get you all your college NFL news and continue to talk UFL. Don't forget to follow us on all our social media at FAA Podcast, Instagram and X, FAA_Bets on X as well. FAApodcast.com is our website. Check us out here on YouTube, Facebook, X, and Instagram, as well as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and TikTok at FAA.podcast. And we'll see you all back for Football Friday.